a picture, light, art, sound, and motion production.
So, Richard, you've been in nature conservation all your life. You've written a few books. Where do you think we're at with conservation in Africa? Do we need to be changing direction? Do we need to be adding things? Is it working? Are we actually winning with conservation in Africa?
Well, I think primarily, it's not just a single-pronged attack that we need to be concentrating on. We've been looking at a multifaceted approach to conservation of natural resources and wildlife in Africa. I mean, a lot has been done in the past. Obviously, we've done quite some good work, and I mean, we just need a lot more people to get involved. I mean, it's all very well expecting the community to do their bit, but they need some kind of ownership of the wildlife resources and stuff. And I mean, there's always a place for national parks and nature reserves and so forth, but we really need to look at a whole lot of different options that we can actually look at. And certainly, the thing that bothers me is that we don't seem to be very serious about doing different approaches to it. So any new approach, I think, benefit wildlife in the long run, and I think it will be absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's always difficult. I mean, I've been involved in impact assessments and EIAs and things like that, and everybody in that line finds it very difficult to put a monetary value on natural resources. How much money do you put towards a waterfall or a river or a natural pan or something like that? It's just really difficult to put a monetary value upon that. So I mean, looking at some kind of tokens or some kind of medals or whatever, some kind of new currency would be actually quite a good thing to actually try and push.
Right. Okay. So you're speaking about ownership of the community, which is what cryptocurrencies essentially aim to do, no matter what line of business the cryptocurrency represents. So that's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, you've got to give ownership to local communities. I mean, otherwise you're wasting your time, really. I mean, you can't just be authoritarian about this whole approach. I mean, they're very much part of it. And of course, there are wildlife resources that are important to local communities as well. And those species are probably quite safe. They'll be looked after because there's benefit to be obtained from those species as well. But I mean, all the smaller and insignificant things, I mean, those are the ones that we don't really spend much time on, so things like that are important too.
Right, okay, thank you. And Si, you've been doing a lot of work in the States. What's your perspective with regard to the difference between conservation in a Western realm as opposed to Africa?
So, sort of the whole idea of sort of national parks in some ways has come from America, and it's been given to other parts of the world to try and use as a vehicle of conservation. So that's kind of a similarity that is present, but there's a lot of difference. The way in which they seem to do things more is that they do it from different levels. So you have, the governmental, federal level that takes care of things like, or have agencies like the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the Bureau of Land Management. And a lot of that funding is coming from the government itself towards environmental programs. National Park is also, National Park Board is also a part of that federal way of doing things. And so what's very interesting though is that, so that's already there nationwide, but then as far as the states are concerned, each state has their own state government.
Right,
And a lot of, in some cases, they get some funding from federal governments, but a lot of the time they stand alone. And so you have these different sort of hierarchical ways of looking and protecting natural resources. And so it's just been interesting to see how, from a state level, I've spent a lot of time working in Idaho, specifically for Idaho Fish and Game. And I've done fisheries research with them, education with them, bear education with them, as well as aquaculture. And it's just been interesting to see how, from a perspective like that, the funding is coming from people who pay for tags to go hunting and to do fishing in the state. A lot of that money and those licenses that they have to get to have that ability goes towards the funding of the actual state government. And so they're taking that money and then applying it to trying to conserve that fish so that people can still continue with their fishing, or to that animal that they want to go for hunting. So it's definitely very interesting how you have those different levels. It's done different. Here in Africa, it's more just you have your governmental agencies, and then you have your sort of non-profit organizations
Yes,
that
yeah.
will do work on their own part, also within a country. So there's no sort of regional or provincial sort of differences
Okay,
as far
yeah,
as how they do
interesting, yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting because I mean, as I said, in the States you've got the federal, you've got the state, and then you've got the NGOs and things like
yeah.
that, the private
Okay.
sector that goes
Right,
under that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's there are different ways at which natural resources are seen
All,
to be.
all have a role to play, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
It's
can you
critical.
also see ownership being taken by the local community and something that's actually working in that environment as well, or something that can work in that environment as well?
Yeah, so I think so too. Like I think when it comes to as far as you know, those hunters that are wanting to be able to still have that privilege to hunt for a particular animal like an elk or moose, if there is in some ways sort of you know an incentive for them to continue to do that. I mean, as I said, they already traditionally are doing that. But I do feel that you know, if as they want that resource to be around for them to continue the
Yes,
tradition
yeah.
of hunting.
And could take a bit of pressure off government, given
Yeah.
that there are a lot of pressures on government as it is with resources and money now,
Yeah.
to a large extent. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that would be something that could be possible in that way. Also, sort of, I mean, again, you know, there are certain things where, as I said, the state is separate from the federal, and they kind of call their own shots on things. And so, I mean, they do have the funding there already, more so than you do sort of in other parts of the world, like in Africa, where it's a little bit tighter in that respect. And so it's kind of already there in a way, but I think if there is definitely more of an incentive to try and, you know, do continue that tradition of
Yeah.
using sort of monetary value to be able to have those resources or those animals.
Slightly
for-
different perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the future of wildlife conservation is you've just got to invest in the resources. You know, I mean, you have to invest in these things if you want them to last and for them to continue in perpetuity. You know, so I think that's pretty critical for that actually to be pushed, you know, quite seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course they're a massive resource to Africa, just
Yeah.
as income from tourism.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you giving me the time to get your perspective on things. Thank you
Well,
very much.
all the best and good luck. Eh?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Cheers.